So while I'm waiting for people to join me, I'm going to take a drink. All right, everybody. All right, where is everybody tonight? I want to hear from you. Let's get the chat rolling. What does the white-tailed deer rut mean to you? Start typing. Let's see those chats. What is the white-tailed deer rut? What's the definition of a deer rut or the rut? And how has the white-tailed deer rut affected you as a hunter, as a deer hunter over the years? Has the deer rut treated you good, treated you poorly? Have you figured it out how to hunt effectively during the rut and during the different phases of the rut, early, mid to late rut? Let me know in your comments. Hey, Jason, how you doing, buddy? I did get your email. Sorry I didn't respond to your email, but I read it. So I saw that you believe that big 10-point buck is still alive. So he's there for you next year, buddy. I hope you get that 10-pointer next year. Hey, it's okay, right, Jason, if we don't shoot the big one this year. There's always next year. Like I got my big 9-pointer with my bow last year. I wasn't necessarily going into this year really expecting to get a buck of this caliber. I was hoping to get at least a good, 2-year-old with a heavy rack 2-year-old. And I still may. There's still plenty of time left in the season. So any others joining us live here or what? I was opening up this live stream by asking a question to all of you that join us live. What does the white-tailed deer rut mean to you? And what do you think the right white-tailed deer rut is? You're in just a few short, sweet words. What do you think the rut is? And how has the white-tailed deer rut treated you good as a deer hunter over the years? Have you figured out how to hunt the white-tailed deer rut effectively and to be successful? And have you been successful during the hunting pre-rut, early, like peak rut and post-rut? Let me know in the comments. See, Jason says, I guess so. He's elusive, but I know where he lives. Hey, Jason, I have a buck just like that, bud. I wish I actually brought with me in the house from my shed, the 2 sets of sheds of the buck I call Curly. I have Curly sheds from the last 2 years in a row. I should have done a little show and tell with them tonight. Maybe next Monday night's live stream, I'll have those sheds with me. And hopefully by next Monday night, I have Curly down. I hope I can catch up to him and shoot him. Hey, how you doing, Zephra Barnes? Zephra Barnes, do you hunt deer? If you're joining us here live, got done asking the question, what does the white-tailed deer rut mean to you as deer hunters? And let us all know in the comments below. Start chatting away, typing away. So, and if all of you have ever heard of Dr. Grant Woods, he's a biologist, scientist. He's been studying white-tailed deer for eons. And I'm sure all of you hunters have heard of Deer and Deer Hunting magazine, Deer Hunting TV show, and such and so forth and so on. And maybe like the Southern Outdoorsman's podcast. And then there's the Bear Grease podcast. There's see what other podcasts. But anyways, that's besides the point. What I'm getting at is what I'm going to share with you about the whitetail rut isn't just my opinion. We all have started somewhere. Like for me, over 30 years ago, I started learning about hunting, learning about white-tailed deer, and I developed my own personal opinions and thoughts around the white-tailed rut and what it meant to me and what it was, based on my observations, based on what I heard from other hunters. There's all those old wives' tales and all those stories that we grow up with, that we've heard, and it's very easy to be impressionable and to take things seriously when really it probably wasn't really the truth. It was way far from the truth. Just you're young, when you're a young hunter starting out, you'll believe anything if you think that it's going to help you shoot that big buck out there in the woods. Let's see. I'm waiting on hearing from Zephyra Barnes. I asked Zephyra if he hunts deer or not. So you've got to, when thinking about the white-tailed deer rut, you've got to step back a couple months from now. Today's like November 17th. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's this like middle of November. Did I say September? Or November? I might have said the month wrong. I'm getting tongue-tied, tongue-twisted here. I even said the month wrong. Yeah, so don't ever believe what you see on the internet or on, right? This is the internet. Yeah, don't believe a word I'm saying. Do your own thorough research. Go out there and Google it and research yourself. But anyways, step back a couple months. Like say in September, August, September, what are the bucks doing then? Their bucks are enjoying home life. They're pretty much homebodies. They're not moving far. The amount of steps they're taking in daylight hours is minimal. I mean, at best, they have no reason to venture far or go far. They don't have really any reason, really. They have everything they need. They have all groceries, ingredients they need to survive, to live day to day happily in a small little close-knit area known as their core. They're a buck's core area. Early in like summer, early fall, you'll have groups of bucks hanging out. You could have 2 or more bucks hanging together. We've all heard this term, bachelor group of bucks. Again, I don't even know if that term is a correct term for referring to bucks hanging together, chilling together, like bros, but we've heard that term for eons, for as long as we've hunted, we've always heard the term bachelor group of bucks. That's like, and then there's also buck bedding areas, but areas where more than one buck bed nearby one another, and they're acting like best friends early on, and you know what's? I'm going off a tangent here. Your gobblers, your male turkeys do the similar thing, by the way. Okay, that's besides the point. We're gonna talk turkey later, several months from now. The turkey talk will come later, but anyways, hey Tyrell, how you doing, buddy? I thank you for chiming in, Tyrell, because I was starting to stray from the topic at hand. But hey, Tyrell, are you a deer hunter, buddy? Did you shoot your big buck, Tyrell? I'm just getting in heat, starting the rut talk, white-tailed deer rut talk. What does the white-tailed deer rut mean to you, Tyrell? Has it treated you well as a deer hunter? Have you figured out how to hunt the rut effectively to be successful shooting big mature bucks? Let us know in the comments. Chat away. So, bucks acting like best bros, go by hanging together. Trail cam data can confirm this. All of us like hardcore deer hunters that have millions of trail cameras spread out all over the forests and different hunting areas, we get intel, lots of pictures and video clips off our cameras of more than one buck feeding together in velvet, and more than one buck strolling together and not having a care in the world, just living their best lives. And the area that they're roaming in is small at that point. They're pretty much staying pretty much close by or right within their core area. So if you're getting really good pics of big mature bucks and daylight pics from like sun up to sundown, you get pictures of those big mature bucks on multiple cameras within a 1 to 1.5 square mile radius area. Take your Onyx app on your phone, look at your hunting area on the Onyx app, and use the tools in the Onyx app to like draw out a 1.5 square mile circle, radius, or 1.5 square mile rectangle, square, all the different shapes, even do a triangle, 1.5 square mile triangle. And pay attention to that, where that 1.5 square mile triangle, rectangle, square, circle is laying over your hunting area. And then like see that, visually see that, and then take in consideration all your trail cameras you have in that area spread about and on the edges of known deer bedding areas or known high deer concentrated deer density hangout areas. And then like, and also jot down or put in your database. If you're this hardcore, you may have an Excel spreadsheet database thing going on. Some hunters do this, and they keep track of all their trail cam data, all their sightings, and year to year, a lot of hardcore hunters will follow the data of the rut, like the pre-rut from like September on through October, towards the end of October, and then the peak rut and on through the post. So a lot of hardcore hunters will keep tabs on year-to-year data and dates of when does come in estrus, when like bucks were locked down with estrus doe, where they've known a chase was going on, where bucks, more than one buck was staying with a doe for multiple days. You want to mark those dates down and put them on calendar. Make your charts and graphs. Keep tabs on all this. Hardcore hunters do this. So you're looking at that 1.5 square mile radius area on the Onyx map. You're like, okay, yeah, I got that buck pick there, got that buck pick there. All daylight pick, noontime, and so that 11 o'clock, noontime, 1 o'clock. Oh man, that buck must have been bedded close by there. Oh, I got a 6 p.m. pick over here, and so he come out of the bed up there, and he kind of grazed and fed along. Him and his buddies came this way. Okay, yeah. What you're doing as a hunter, you're figuring out the core area for that mature buck, that buck you want to hunt in November, that you hope to put your tag on. And you're figuring out the home range. And pretty much the core area for a white-tailed buck is where he spends at least minimally 50 or more % of his total time throughout the season, throughout the whole like pre-rut, peak rut, pretty much majority of the year where he spends 50% of the time. Then that's it. And you've got to know too, right now, middle of November, the majority of the does have been bred. There was probably like 15-20% does having been successfully bred in October. Didn't know if any of you knew this, but this is a factual thing. This is backed by real biology and science. This is backed by eons and eons of scientific research studies. By like you can learn this by following the Dr. Growing Deer with Growing Big with Dr. Grant Woods and such, so forth. Then there's the Deer Society, the crap. And then, anyways, but yeah, you get the gist. So it's backed by science. That it's factual that some does are already bred before November, but not that many. And then and that's pretty much your pre-rut. That's when there's a lot, like bucks are more patternable that time. And like a 7 to 10 day window in the pre-rut, the bucks are laying a lot of scrape. They might have scrape lines and they're rubbing a lot. A hunter could do well to find hot scrape really just off of the fringes of a known buck bedding area, an area where just the hunter knows that buck spends the majority of his daylight hours. And a hunter could do well to camp out on that scrape. If you have a dynamite access route to a scrape right nearby a buck bedding area, like maybe you found a scrape at the head of a drainage where you can walk, might be a strenuous uphill steep climb up that drainage, that ditch, and you can let the thermals pull your scent away from that scrape and away from that buck bedding area down on that draw, and your stand could be might be up at the head of that that drainage ditch, where you're looking over that scrape that's not far from that buck bedding area. That's what I just laid out there for you. What I just explained is a number one dynamite, surefire stand set for bow hunters, gun hunters, doesn't matter. Having parking far away, down in the lower elevation, the bottom of a draw drainage area, and then walking up the middle of that draw drainage ditch to sneak up into that stand, knowing darn well the thermals, the cooler air, the dropping of the thermals from the cooling of the evening's air and stuff that's going to pull your scent right down in that drainage ditch and away from any approaching deer coming towards that scrape. And then there's other setups. So you might find a hot scrape on a bench or something where you might be able to access a stand along up a steep steep slope that doesn't have any deer trails, that deer aren't traveling. It's always a good idea to access your stand or blind sight sets through areas that deer don't frequent or deer aren't traveling, so they don't come across your scent, and so that also you got the wind in your face and wind in your favor. You got thermals playing to your advantage, and then you're also walking and accessing the area where deer aren't walking. All that's playing to your advantage. Getting into your stand, overlooking those scrapes. So the pre-rut, about middle to end of October, that there's those bucks there. You can bet that a big buck's going to come back and visit that scrape within a couple days' time. Scrape lines pretty much guarantee a buck showing up 2 or 3 times in a week's time. So if you take a week off for hunting and you're camped out there, you want to at least give your set at least 3 days plus minimally. Don't move, don't bounce around. You'll be at least successful. And you want to give a stand site at least 3 days. So whatever that means. Leon, what's it? MAGA, whatever that means. But anyways, so I'm going to back up a little bit, reverse. So those bucks I was talking about early in summer, or in late summer, September time frame, that were hanging, chilling, while those bucks were in velvet, bedding together, feeding together, hanging out like best bros. They eventually shed their velvet. Testosterone levels rise. They start feeling doing bucky things. They'll start rubbing trees. They'll start shoving and pushing one another. What the heck is this guy doing, Leon? You might want to get off there, Leon. I don't know. What's that, a virus or something? What does MAGA mean? All right, so they start establishing the pecking order, the hierarchy or pecking order among themselves. The bucks all the local resident bucks in your hunting area, they've known each other for their whole lives, and they start pretty much figuring out who's the big hoss of the woods, they might spar and shove and push, and they're just playing, they're lightly fighting, just kind of light shoving matches, just kind of figuring out who's the big honcho of the woods, who's going to be the dominant buck, right? But of course, we all know as hunters that as time progresses towards the peak of the rut, when does start cycling into estrus, many different does in our hunting area start, and that scent is broadcast through the woods, the bucks really get horned up. They start getting ruddy, and all out, full out, blown out fights could happen at any given time from like middle October all the way through November. So then you got that time span in the pre-rut where you're starting to find scrapes. And that is good. If you're a bow hunter and you're hunting after a big trophy buck early on in October, and you're finding scrapes, you hit pay dirt. Hopefully your camera's nearby those scrapes. Your triggers are picking up daytime activity, daytime picks of a big mature buck. Because then those are the scrapes you want to focus on, not those ones that are getting picks in the middle of the night. You want daytime activity, obviously. So then your entry and exit routes to these scrape lines, these scrapes that you want to hunt, are key. You've got to really pay attention to how you're accessing and exiting the area. I mean, then you could either be dropped off by a buddy, be driven in to a site. If there's already roadways, trails, a path that trucks, four-wheelers, highway-sides, hikers and stuff use, and the deer are already acquainted with and already know. Deer hunting is very circumstantial, it's all about circumstances, about the circumstances at hand that play out. That deer are very extremely used to where humans are supposed to be, where human activity is. Deer are aware of that. They know that. Deer will shy away from those areas that get the most human disturbance, the most disturbance in general. So a good way to access a good stand site nearby. Scrapes, we're looking over scrapes close by buck bedding. Be having a buddy drop you off, and then him leaving on that side by side or four wheeler, or him leaving with that pickup truck. Those deer hear the vehicle coming. They're aware. They're listening. They're looking. But they're 100 yards off or something. They don't really have a care in the world that that vehicle is over there where it's supposed to be. As long as human activity, human disturbance is where it's supposed to be, the deer won't pay hardly much attention at all. They do perk up, listen, look, smell. And once they hear that vehicle leaving, they'll wag the tail in contentment and go immediately back to grazing, immediately back doing to what they were doing. That's a good way to access stand site. And obviously those drainage draw ditches I was talking about earlier, and just finding entry and exit points, areas that have favorable wind, where you can walk, where the wind's pulling your scent away from known deer density, deer hangouts, and maybe figure out how the thermals are pulling and drawing, and how the thermals, figure out if there's a thermal tsunami, a thermal hub, or some way, shape, or form, where you're walking, that might help pull your scent away, keep your scent going away from where you expect that buck to come from and where you expect him to walk. You got to figure all this out for your entry and exit route, so you don't blow it, so you don't burn a stand site. And so back to the rut talk. Let's see, Tyrell says, yes, I'm in Mississippi. Where are you from? From Maine, buddy. Hi from Maine. Tyrell is from Mississippi, and he says, yes, he hunts. Jason Gibson says, that's where I got my spike this year. He was heading down to cruise a line of scrapes. Sweet. Nice. Did you guys see that? Jason Gibson said the buck he shot was heading for some scrapes that he knew of. Nice. Did he stop with that? Maga? I don't even know what that was all about. I have no idea what that was. Someone was just constantly typing. What is MAGA? MAGA. Anyways, so during the pre-rut, how many of you heard of the secret rut? Bill Winkie, who I follow. Most hunters know who Bill Winkie is. I follow his YouTube channel, watch his YouTube videos. He talks of the secret rut, where that's just where a certain number of does are coming into estrus early on. Maybe 15-20% of does in your hunting area, or 15-20% of does in general as a whole in where you live, in the state that you live. However, Grant Wood, I'll have to go back to watch Dr. Grant Wood's videos, and research some of Dr. Grant Wood's writings and stuff, to really pinpoint what he actually meant by 15-20, about 20-25% of does already being bred in October, before the rut really peaks, ramps up, before almost all your adult does come into estrus. But it could be 25% of all the does in your state, or 25% of the does in your hunting area. But anyways, beside the point. There's a certain number of does. This is known as the secret rut, that they start to smell right. That's why, like, some hunters that are out there a lot of hunters that put in tons of time, take a lot of time off work, just hunt. They're out there a lot. They are experiencing this. They're seeing this through trail camera data, through their own eyes. they're all seeing a surge of daylight buck activity, and with those bucks' noses on the ground, like middle towards the end of October. That's because there's a doe somewhere nearby that's close to estrus that's probably coming in heat. There's going to be a certain few does that are going to be able to breed early on. And so, and it's always been said from all the research that I've done and all the videos I've watched and things I've read, everything through all years, and obviously personal hunting experiences through the over the 30 plus years that I've been deer hunting. The bucks are the mature, especially mature bucks, are most patternable in October, middle to end of October, and that's because they're pretty much they're bedding when there's the least amount of deer activity, maybe from 11 to 1, 11 to 2, or 12 to 1, 12 to... It's a couple-hour window there where the buck's going to bed. He's going, or he might, a big, mature, old buck might bed the majority of the day. There's some research that I learned from listening to podcasts. I've heard that actually, white-tailed deer, and I learned this from research and stuff, and this was backed by scientific radio collar data through several years of data and research, that white-tailed deer really only like bed like 60% of the day. No, they're don't believe this. Scrap. I mean, it's pretty much, I'm not going to put a percentage on this. I'm just going to say that it's actually impressive how little the white-tailed deer really do bed during the daylight hours. It's impressive how long the white-tailed deer are up on their feet, moving about. And just a lot of hunters aren't seeing this, noticing that the deer are actually active throughout the majority of the daylight hours. That's because they're tucked back into the really thickest areas in your hunting, thickest spots in your hunting area there. But they could be up feeding, grazing, and doing deer things. They might not be venturing very far, but if you find that key spot, man, that dynamite spot, and you have a stand set up on the fringes of a really thick, like 2-3-year-old clear cut or cedar swamp or alder cedar type swamp or any the thickest, densest, high stem count area in your hunting location. That's going to be where there's going to be a lot of daytime activity by deer. And so you do well to probably camp out on the downwind side of that high deer activity area. And you could very well see a lot of deer and have a lot of success here deer in an area like that. So I was talking about, I strayed a little bit, but I was getting ready to say that the deer, white-tailed deer, bucks, the mature bucks, are most patternable middle to late October during the pre-rut when they're following the scrape lines. They're almost kind of going in a circular, oval, rectangular, triangle type pattern. They're following some form of pattern early on at that time, and it's only in a short window. It's only like a 7 to 10 day window when the bucks are following these scrape lines. They're on this every 2 to 3 day type pattern. Like the buck could be here today, hitting this scrape, rubbing these trees. He could be bedding up in this, down in this like thermal hub over here. And tomorrow, the next day, he's further up the scrape line. He might have circled this hill or ridge. He could be over here, hitting this scrape on this day, and then in another couple days, eventually he'll come back around, that buck, to where you're sitting in your stand and getting ready to shoot your target buck. Where you're getting trail cam pictures of mature trophy bucks in the daylight, where you're getting pics of them multiple times in a week, at least minimally 2 to 3 times in a week time span. Man, you want to take time off work. You want to take the following week 7 days off from work. You want to be able to put time aside to sit in that stand for minimally, at best, at least 3 to 4 days. Give it at least minimally 3 days in that stand. You won't burn a stand out in that amount of time. If you have the right entry and exit points and locations to where you're not alarming any deer, the deer aren't getting your ground scent, and the deer aren't smelling you. You're not hearing deer run, hearing deer snort, and alarm snort take off. You just know darn well you're not alerting any deer, any local does and subordinate bucks or the buck you're after. And you can access that stand, and you can sit it out for 3 to 4 or more days on a scrape line. That buck's going to eventually come back around, and you're going to get your chance. And then all of a sudden, one day, so that's the pre-rut. All of a sudden, one day, the scrapes grow cold. The scrapes get buried with leaves and needles. The frosty mornings, the frost is still clung to those scrapes, and the dirt is all funky looking from the frost. And that scrape hasn't been fresh. You don't see it freshen. All of a sudden, the scrapes go cold. Why, you may ask? And for obvious reasons. The majority of the does are starting to smell close to estrus. All of a sudden, what once was the seeking, just merely the seeking phase of the rut, becomes the chasing, the seeking/chasing phase of the rut, where the bucks could care less about checking scrapes to see if any local doe come by to urinate nearby, or see if a doe come to sniff and lick and hit that licking branch. Yes, bucks and does, all sexes of deer and all ages classes of deer will hit licking branches. Licking branches, overhanging limbs, branches in really high deer concentrated areas, on highly traveled deer areas. They're communication type points. That licking branch is no different than the cell phone is to us humans. It's Betty Lou was here. Oh, Joe comes along and smells that licking branch and paws the ground a little bit, sniffs around. Oh, Jessica was here. Oh, okay, I'm gonna lay my scent down. And then Bill comes along and says, man, Joe just licked this licking branch. Where is he? I want to kick his ass. Oh, because Betty Lou and Jessica and Jill were here. You know, that's a communication post. There's year, and I don't know if you knew this, deer hunters, but licking branches are used year round. Not the scraping behavior, not laying down the scrapes, pawing on the ground. That's sort of a frustrational type, sort of a nervous twitch the bucks have, them pawing the ground. It's just because they're so hyped up on testosterone, so horned up, and they've got to do something. They got to take out their frustrations on trees by rubbing, take out their frustrations on no different than my cats taking their frustrations out in my litter boxes, freaking throwing litter everywhere like that. It's a nervous twitch that they have. That deer are no different. But that scraping behavior, the scraping on the ground, isn't done year round. That's like a 7-10 day window in that pre-rut that I just got done explaining, where that scraping behavior is done. And that there's always a licking branch associated with those scrapes. But I'm going to do a series of videos at some point in time later on. Let's see, Maxton says, I just got my biggest buck on Saturday. Congratulations, Max. What was it? Max says, congrats. Wisconsin Hunter says, hi. How you doing, Wisconsin Hunter? Wisconsin Hunter and Jason and I don't know who did that MAGA crap. And Tyrell and all you guys. This guy here says he just got his biggest buck. Maxon got shot his biggest buck. Sweet. So, all right. I might have lost my train of thought, but I was talking about so I talked about early season. I went into pre-rut. Now we're leading into peak rut talk and conversation. So we got a lot of people on here live. That's great. So everyone give, Jason already said congrats. Everyone give Maxon a shout out, Maxon, for getting his biggest buck on Saturday. Congratulations, buddy. This is one of my good bucks back here I got last year with my bow, Maxton. This was 9-pointer, 200-pound 9-pointer. I got my biggest bucks over there. I got a leg cramp, everybody. Any of you ever get a leg cramp while doing a live stream? You can't say have, huh? Well, this is a stupid leg. It's probably from sitting too long in the blind and stand, all that stuff. So straight on cold. I was talking about me eventually doing. For the last 2 years, I've been collecting a lot of trail cam data and a lot of visual data, a lot of video cam data of actually being able to film video deer and stuff. Of deer using a natural hanging licking branch that the tree was all over that branch are there. I've got a trail camera on a very active licking branch. There's never a scrape laid down underneath this licking branch, but this licking branch gets hit by spikes, 4-pointers, 2-year-olds, 3-year-old bucks, gets hit by does and yearlings, fawns. And then I have a mock licking branch, mock scrape set up with scent dripper that I do put scent in a couple times throughout the season. I stop filling the scent dripper. I only will fill it maybe twice early on in the season. And I'll set it up like in August, the scent dripper, and it's a mock licking branch with a scent dripper, mock scrape on the ground. And it's on a really heavily traveled deer trail, and there's intersection of trail there. And that's the best place to put mock scrapes anyway. And you should all of you hunters should know this. Or anyone setting up a mock scrape, mock licking branch, mock scrape, all that. It's got to be. Doesn't make sense to put it where there isn't a lot of deer activity, a lot of deer traffic. You've got to put them mock scrapes where their deer are going to find it. The wise man once said the scrapes there is there because of the deer, because the deer are there. It's not the deer are there because of the scrape. The scrape. Yeah, I might have said that right. But anyways, I'm getting a lot of cool, awesome data from my trail cameras of bucks and does and all different age classes of deer and does and bucks alike, hidden my mock licking branch, hidden my mock scrape, and then also likewise them hidden the real live licking branch that was already naturally there by Mother Nature that the deer have found, and that's happens to be on a heavily traveled trail. And I have my trail cameras set up perfectly on this with their cellular cameras, so I don't need to keep going to disturb the area and exchanging SD cards. I can leave the camera up for like 6+ months without ever disturbing the area, because the batteries will last about that long, about 4 to 6 months in my trail cameras. So I only have to go visit those spots every 6 months or so to change out batteries. So they're getting great data of deer interactions, deer activity at these licking branch scrapes. And that I've found too, I've got proof of it, and I've also learned this through podcasts and research I've done, that licking branches are used year-round by either sex deer. And they're like a cell phone to a deer. They're like a cell phone is to a human. So peak rut, scrapes cold, straight on cold. That's because it's now the heavy chasing phase. I shot this 9-point buck right here with my bow on Halloween day. It was chasing does. He was grunting every so many steps and chasing does. He was in the chasing phase. He wasn't no longer interested in his scrape lines, and he was probably half a mile away from where he was running scrape lines and where he was bedding in thick cover, and then when the timing was when he felt like it, getting up and hitting the first scrape outside his bedding area and then going on to the next and hitting and doing his little routine, his little patternable every 2-3 day return to this scrape kind of routine. Like if you find a scrape that's active, that's super fresh, and it's in the right timing of the year for the scraping behavior to go on, you could bet all your money on that buck, and multiple bucks for that matter are going to eventually circle back around to the area and visit that scrape probably 2 to 3 days from then now, or in a couple days. Yeah, but eventually that's all going to stop. They're going to shift. They're going to go shift from their early fall kind of pre-rut time frame and do the fall, what they call the fall shift, and the bucks are going to hone in on doe groups. They're going to start hanging with the does. They're going to start bedding downwind of doe bedding areas. Their bucks are going to start bedding and hanging, spending the majority of their day downwind of doe feeding areas. Bucks are going to start traveling the inside edges of fields and inside corners of fields, and they're gonna stick to cover. The big old boys, they're not going to expose themselves too much. They're going to stay in cover. But all of a sudden, their hunters will start finding like pockets of rubs, like there's staging areas that some hunters are lucky to find, and that's where like every tree around is just thrashed, it's just torn up. If you find a place like that, that's a staging area. That's an area that you want to pay attention to. Maybe where you're going to shoot that big trophy buck. It's an area where a buck feels safe in there, tucked away in the cover, downwind of other deer and where does are hanging out and bedding and feeding. And he's hanging there till the cover of darkness before he feels safe enough to saunter out into the field and the openings into the feeding areas where the does are. So that's the shift. The bucks are, and this buck here, Shorty, I call him. That's because at 2 years old, his points were real short, barely 2 inches long, and he was only an 8-pointer at 2 years old. And he wasn't as wide, and his main beams weren't as long. Short points, shorter main beams, and he grew into a 9-pointer at 3 years old. This is him at 3.5 years old, and he's in a heavier racked, longer main beams. Grew it a couple more inches to his points, but he would have always had short points, so I could name him Shorty. But I was noticing his tracks, his big heavy footprint in the mud and dirt, and right in a food plot of mine, an area where does frequent, where there's always tons of younger bucks and yearlings and does frequenting and feeding. And then I was getting a trail cam pic of him. I was getting like a pic of him one day, 3-4 days later, another one. That I was getting like 2 to 3 pictures of this buck in a week. 1 week I got 2 to 3 pics of him, and then the following week another 2 or 3 pics of him. And they're right after the dark. Like the pics were of him coming out into a field, into a clover, grassy food plot like field area where the does were frequenting and eating. And I was getting those pictures, and and this was far from where I got his summer pics. So Shorty and Curly, the buck I'm after this year, I was after 2 target bucks last year. This one and Curly. I actually was successful last year shooting one of my 2 target bucks, and this is one of them. Curly's still alive. I got Curly's sheds from the last 2 years in a row, but he's the buck I hope to get this year or next year, or some point in time I hope to put my tag on Curly. But Curly and him were traveling together in a best friend group. It was just them two in Velvet in the summer. I mentioned this earlier in this live stream, how bucks will travel early in the summer. 2 or more bucks will travel together, and what hunters have always known as bachelor. It's got to be better. I mean, I guess it's a good term for it. They were just best buddies then, and I got all kinds of trail cam pics of them feeding together in a place I call the Narrows, and near the swamp stand I got pics of them on that. I got pics of them on another little clover plot I had a camera on. But these summertime pics of Shorty and Curly were nearly a quarter to a half mile away from where I ultimately shot him, where he was hanging with the does. He did that fall shift. He shifted from his summer range, Shorty did, in the summertime, in the pre-rut, in like October time frame, pre-rut, Shorty shifted, especially towards the end of October, and he was way up near all my girls, all the does that I call the girls, my long eyelashed, pretty, dainty little thing. All of the girls, the doe, which means the does. He was showing more attention to them. Instead of hanging with his best bro, Curly, he was wanting to be with Susie Q and Jessica and Jill and whatever. I don't know any other girls' names. So yeah, and I was like, man, I need to hit that stand, the rut stand, a tree stand I had set in place that I was saving specifically for this time frame, this time span, known as my rut stand. It's a tree stand that I can go to when the chasing, heavy seek and chasing phase of the rut, the pre-rut, before the rut really amps up, peaks, and there's the lockdown phase when the bucks are just staying with the does, and they're bedding with does and thick cover, and they're not moving far, not moving much. And they're staying with that estrus doe and breeding with her, mounting her for a couple days straight and stuff. So this was before the lockdown phase, before the peak of the rut. His tracks were showing up. I got, like I mentioned earlier, had the 2 to 3 picks of Shorty in that 1 week, and the following week another 2 to 3 picks. And I was seeing all this. I was seeing his, not just trail cam pics, but I was seeing his sign based on what I saw for tracks, the doe tracks, and his. I was like, I need to hunt here now. I was like, a light bulb went off my head. I was thinking, man, I know how to kill Shorty. I think I got a chance at him. And sure enough, on Halloween night, I went to my rut stand, and I only had like an hour and a half of daylight left. And I parked my truck. There was already immediately does watching me at the truck. But this is, remember I mentioned earlier in the live stream that how hunting is very circumstantial. Like as far as white-tailed deers, how they react to human disturbance, human presence, is all circumstantial. It's all based on what they're used to, what they're seeing, hearing, smelling day to day throughout their lifespan. The deer, they know where humans are supposed to be and where they're not supposed to be in their home range. So where I parked my truck, it was near a building. It's where these local resident does and deer that were watching me are used to seeing me, and they're used to hearing my truck come and go, and they're used to me parking and shutting off my truck at that spot. So that's why these deer never ran. It's because they were seeing this often, almost daily, sometimes multiple times a day. They were seeing me and hearing the truck, seeing me walk around this area. They're used to human disturbance there. So that was cool to have the does watch me get hunting gear ready, get all my camera, get my cameras, my bow, and head to my stand. I only had like an hour and a half of daylight left, and I got up in there. I was in the stand maybe 40 minutes. It was coming dark. It was getting lower light, and I heard grunting. Heard Shorty grunt. I look up and I see doe run this way, and then the second doe, and then Shorty after them. He'd grunt and run, chase them does, and then they'd come back. And then eventually Shorty, he went off. The does went this way to my left. I thought maybe they caught my scent a little bit, possibly, because it seemed Shorty bounded off to my right, out of sight in the woods. I could hear the red squirrels going nuts. And it took deer calling to coax him in. I did some doe bleating, buck tendon grunting, and I angled the call away from where he was to make it sound like the buck was walking away and when maybe tending those does that he was just chasing. And that I figured that would fire him up and get him to come my way. And it worked just like a charm. My bleating, did some doe bleating, and did some buck tendon grunting. I did at least 2 sequences of that. And several minutes, 10, 20 minutes later, here he come. Popped out of the woods out in front of me to stop and listen and look for those so-called deer. But it was me that did the call, and he thought I was another deer, and he was looking for that deer and those deer. And he come right in on a string, gave me a 10-yard shot. The rest is history. So, and that's a buck I shot right at the peak of the chasing phase of the rut, when the scrapes were going cold. He wasn't the doe. One of those does that he was chasing most likely was smelling close to estrus. He must have knew that one of those does was close. And if I hadn't shot Shorty, it's a very good possibility that in the next 24 hours from that time to 48 hours, he probably would have been breeding one of those does and been locked down with her and bedding with her and feeding her, been staying by her side and chasing her some more before going on to find another hot doe. So, who else is on here? So I've been live probably long enough. That was enough rut talk for now. I could expound on other aspects of the rut. There's other things I'll probably save some of the chatter for another live stream. I really don't like to go live more than about an hour. So my family's coming upstairs, so don't mind them. So it says hi. But well, that's cool. But why says hi. How you doing, buddy? Cash Barker says hi. It's me, Cash. Cash Barker. Are you the one that said? Oh yeah. How you doing, Cash? Hi, it's me, Cash. So are you a deer hunter, Cash? Let's see, Maxton shot his biggest buck on Saturday. I did, if you're still with us, Maxton, how big was the buck? How many points did he have? What did he weigh? And where did you shoot him in Maine? Are you a Maine deer hunter, or are you from another state? Maxton, that was for you, Maxton. How you doing, Wisconsin? Dave D says, any experience with Newcomb blinds? The Newcomb blind? Never heard of that, Dave. I'm using the Tidewee blind. I've got, no, I've never heard of the Newcomb blinds. How about any of you guys? Cash, Jason, Wisconsin Hunter, Country Kid. But why, all you other guys, have you heard of Newcomb blinds? So what is a Newcomb blind, Dave? Let us know. So for those of you that are just chiming in now, I just got done my little rut chatter talking about the summer time frame, the pre-rut, peak rut, and so forth, so on. I probably butchered it real bad, but I go live every Monday night, so next Monday night I'll probably have some other tidbits of information that I want to expound on and share about the rut, stuff, so forth, so on. But all of you that are deer hunters, how has the deer rut treated you through the years? Have you figured out how to hunt the rut successfully, and what does it mean to you? Let's see. Dave says, any experience? He says it's a tiny little super portable. It's interesting. Tiny little, super, probably light. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Dave. Have you ever heard of the ghost blind? I own like 3 of them. I have 2 Predator ghost blinds, and I have the Runner ghost blind. The ghost blind is also very light and portable. It's a mirror. One side's a mirror, reflective mirror-like thing that reflects the ground in front of it. So you totally disappear when you're behind that blind. You totally disappear. When looking at it from a short distance away, it just looks like the ground, like you're looking at the leaves and sticks in front of it. It's very helpful to lean sticks and logs up in front of the ghost blind to help the reflective part of it will reflect off those limbs and branches. It also gives it more. It makes it not look as boxy, and it helps get rid of the straight edge, straight lines, the blind, and also prevents the ghost blind from blowing in the wind and moving and shimmying in the wind. So it's helpful to lay some logs or sticks in front of it to help with mat, pretty much cover you. Yeah, the ghost blind. Anyways, yeah, I was going off on a tangent. Jason says, no, sir, new to me. My blinds are built by me. Step 1 primos. Yeah, similar idea, not mirror, but camo. It's a 3-pound blind. Huh. Only 3 pounds, that's not bad weight-wise. I'll have to look them up. The Newcomb blinds. Never heard of them. My Tidewee blind I got for free. I got a Tidewee outfit, hunting suit, and a Tidewee blind all for free. Was it last year that Tidewee emailed me claiming they watched some of my videos or impressed with my YouTube videos, wherever they were wondering if I've ever considered using Tidewee stuff. All they wanted me to do was do some review videos on their blind and gear. And in turn, I got it for free. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? 2 days later, I had all that. It was like coming home to Christmas. It was like I had a brand new Tidewee blind, see-through blind, and hunting jacket and pants from them, all for free. I did put out a little video about the blind. I still have to do a review video on the outfit, but yeah, Tidewee. I've got some of their stuff. I've got some other blind, the ghost blinds I mentioned. But this blind seems interesting. Sounds neat. I'll have to look into it. Appreciate that one, Dave. Dave, have you been successful hunting with this blind yet? Have you shot any deer or anything from the blind yet? Jason says, I wasn't using a blind, just sitting in jack furs on a log when I got mine. Sometimes that's the best. The stump sitting is sometimes all it takes. I love the good old-fashioned traditional stump sitting, just moving through the woods slowly and stopping every now and then, looking and listening, and seeing a nice rock or stump to sit on to rest for a few moments, eat a snack and take a drink. Sometimes that's when you seal the deal. Sometimes that's when that buck appears. Yeah, the good olden days of hunting, stump sitting. That's how many of hunters have been successful through the years. And Jason, you mentioned. Wait, Dave. Okay, Dave, answer my questions. He says, so Dave shot some turkey using that Newcomb blind. Going to try for deer on public this year with that blind. That's cool. So Dave, I go live every Monday night. So just remember, if you are successful, Dave, with shooting deer with this Newcomb blind, I might be butchering the name of it. Some Monday night, come back on live with us and fill us in on your success story of shooting a deer with the Newcomb blind. Use my email, wildmainoutdoors.com. That looks horrible. WILDMAINEOUTDOORS@gmail.com. So wildmainoutdoors@gmail.com. Use that email to send me pics, your success pics of a deer you shot with a Newcomb blind, and share it in your little story, and I'll give you a shout out during the live stream. I'll have my laptop and show your pics and share your story. So this is for everybody though. All of you that are with me live, use my email, wildmainoutdoors@gmail.com, to send your deer pics. Like like Maxim, who says he shot his biggest buck on Saturday. Maxim, send that pics of that buck in your short story to wildmainoutdoors@gmail.com. And next Monday night, I'll share your story and show your pic. And I've been live long enough talking rut talk. I'm going to talk more about the rut and like post-rut or talk about next live stream. I want to talk about not giving up, staying patient, how that big buck you've been after that all of a sudden disappeared. Why he disappears? Because he went through his fall shift. He shifted towards wherever it is he goes during the peak of the rut, during that time when there's does. He's pretty much shifting to where the does are. He's staying closer by does. Your mature buck, he's bedding on third way down ridges, or he's bedding in swamps. He's bedding on downwind sides, downwind area where he can scent check does right from his bed. Big, mature, older bucks, they're wise, and they're smart. They can travel their home range in certain areas like downwind of where he knows those does are, and he's scent checking those areas. He's smelling potential danger, and he's fleeing the scene. He's going and hiding, and he might find out he's being hunted because he might smell those dirty hunters because he's downwind of where all that high deer concentration, deer activity is. Those mature bucks, they're staying away from those busy areas where all those hunters are watching the does, and you're those younger bucks wondering where the big boy is. Well, all the while, that big buck is back there downwind of you and downwind of those does, knowing you're there, knowing the does are there. And he's knowing if any of those does are near estrus, in estrus. So yeah, that's where your buck disappeared to. He's not gone for good. Your buck's going to return home, where you've done your thorough scouting, your research through the years, and you've found these big mature trophy bucks that you're hunting. You've been after for a couple years or more, and you've pinpointed their core area, but you just, for some reason, like the luck's not going your way, and you just have yet to put your tag on him. But eventually, you keep persevering, push on, remain patient. Patience wins all. You'll hopefully one day eventually succeed at getting that trophy buck that you've been after. And they always return home, return back to where they feel the safest, most comfortable, into their core area. But right now, middle of November, it's starting to peter out. The peak of the rut's here. It's starting to wane off, peter out. Eventually, it's going to be bed to feed. It's going to be a lot more resting up, a lot more bedding, a lot more morning, early hour movement, a lot more movement and later in the evening, and a little less midday activity. Like whereas like in the peak of the rut, like pre-rut, early on, seek and chasing phase of the rut, the bucks were on their hooves any time of the day. Midday hunting, man, it can be a dynamite time to shoot a trophy buck. If you put in the time, you're sitting every day, not leaving, remaining calm, patient. Eventually, a cruising buck, hoping to find an extra just strolling, cruising through. They'll eventually come by. A lot of times, why hunters are successful midday too, and this doesn't even have to do with a rut. Sometimes it's a good idea just to stick it out all day long. It could be that you're witnessing a bed shift. If you're hunting nearby a known trophy buck, big mature buck bedding area, and all the cards are played right. I mean, if everything's going your way, wind, thermals, whatever, and the buck doesn't know that you exist, you very well could arrow that buck or put a bullet through that buck midday, 11 o'clock, 12, 1, 2, because he might have gotten up at the peak temperature of the day. When the temperature gets to its peak, the hottest part of the warmest part of the day, all of a sudden, and then as the sun starts going down and the temperature peaks and then starts dropping, getting cooler, there's a shift in the thermals. The wind sometimes shifts direction, the thermals change, and it makes the buck stand up. And that guy that does the whitetail research with the drone, all of you know about this guy, right? That can't think of his name right now off the top of my head, but the drone guy, the guy that does the whitetail research. It took a whole year off hunting to research deer, follow deer with a drone. He found this. He backs this up. His data proved this point, showed this, and he figured it out with a drone with thermal imaging. There was a thermal drone. Every day, about midday, the bucks he was following, studying with this thermal drone, they were standing up at the peak temperature of the day, where it was the warmest, and they were shifting. They might move a couple hundred yards. They might feed a little bit, defecate, pee, urinate, and they don't go too far, but sometimes a buck could go far enough towards where you're sitting in your stand or your blind to where you could get that buck middle of the day. And that's because he did a bed shift. You witnessed a bed shift. He came from where he was bedding earlier, and he was heading your way towards this bedding area over here, to where the thermals would have played in his favor and been better. So, man, see, I'm rambling. I've been over an hour going live. Like I said, guys, man, I have just all this information welled up in my mind. That's why I'm going live every Monday night, so I can share it all with you guys. Can't get it all out in one night, but we'll just keep going live every Monday and keep sharing. Dave says, thanks, will do. I'll send some pics of the blinds too. My nephew is going with me most of the season this year. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. I hope you guys do have a lot of success with that blind. I'm going to look into that blind. Paul Whitney says, tagged out early and dying to sit in the woods. That's cool, Paul. So you said you tagged. So you tagged out. Oh, you mean, yeah, you tagged out early, but you wished you. Well, you must have other deer tags on you. Like I shot 2 does. I still have 3 deer tags. I shot 2 does, one with my bow, one with a gun. I still have 3. I have an either sex tag, good for a doe or buck, and I have a buck statewide buck tag and another doe tag. So I hunt pretty much the whole season. So what about you, Paul? Can you get other deer tags and still hunt get in the woods. You could go hunt coyote or bobcat or hunt other things. Maybe go duck hunt or walk your hunting area, learn it better and scout. Just get out there. Them diehard deer hunters, man, the hunting season never ends. Hunting is year round for the true deer hunters. They never stop scouting, learning, collecting data, doing like research and learning everything they possibly can about the quarry, what the animals they pursue and hunt. Hunting is like year round for something, like for me especially, bear hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, coyote hunting, bobcat hunting, ice fishing. Ice fishing is just like hunting deer. That's a whole nother, I'll get into that later. In ice fishing season, I'll be talking about how, yeah, anyways, let's not get into ice fishing. It's not what this live stream's about today, but that's coming soon. Ice fishing season's coming, guys. I want to build this community strong. The Spikes and Gills live streams, I want it to be a strong hunting, fishing community every Monday night where a bunch of us come on and chat away, share stories. I always share my email, wildmaneoutdoors@gmail.com, so that you guys can send me pics and short stories, so I can give you shout outs and talk about your story and show your pics, so forth and so on. Me and a buddy tracked a buck down today. Congratulations, William. Was he a dandy? So William said, everybody, that him and his buddy tracked down a buck. Awesome. All the deer tracks I got on in the snow today were young. I saw one set of tracks that was from a young buck, where he come across the cut. He was just on a straight line. It was a small, younger deer. And then all the other tracks I come across were does and yearlings. I even came up upon a doe and a yearling. But no bucks today for me. But I did fill 2 doe tags. I'm not without deer meat. I've shot 2 deer this year, so I can't complain. I did get deer, not deerless this year, but just looking for antler now. So waiting on William to say what they got for a buck. Dave says, can't wait to get out to Ossipee or Winnipesaukee for ice fish. Nice. Oh, so you are from Maine, Dave. Yeah, I fished Ossipee. I think I've been to Winnipesaukee. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so eventually all my deer hunting content will transition over to ice fishing content, because ice fishing season's next. And then after ice fishing will be turkey hunting content on my channel. My channel is based on every season. It's based around turkey hunting season and bear hunting season and moose hunting season. My channel's based on deer hunting season, and a little bit of predator hunting, some mixed in there, maybe some coyote, bobcat stuff, and then ice fishing. I put out content and live streams for every season out there, and smart really, that way I'm never out of content to upload and never out of things to say and share. And I want my live streams to be about all those topics, subjects. I want to build a community where we're all sharing together, sharing some tips and tidbits, knowledge, tactics, tricks. Let's help each other be successful at hunting and fishing. That's what the Spikes and Gills live stream is all about. So Jason says, David did scuba training in Winnie. Close to 200 pounds. 8-pointer with a few William said it was an 8-pointer with a few broken tines, and it was close to 200. That's awesome, William. Congratulations, guys, on a great buck. Awesome. William, if you could, share your pics of your buck, guys. William, share pics of your 8-pointer and share a short story to my email, wildmaneoutdoors@gmail.com. wildmaneoutdoors@gmail.com. WILDMAINEOUTDOORS@gmail.com. Wildman. And next Monday night I'll have my laptop up with your pics of the 8-pointer, and I'll share your short story and show your success. And you could join us too and chat away and share some more about your story. Jason says congrats to you as well, William. So Yeah, Jason, buddy, the Dave guy here, he's going to email me pics of that blind of his that he was using. Yeah, Dave, send along pics of the turkey and that blind. And hopefully you go get a deer with that blind so you can share that with the email, and I'll share the story and success on my live stream. So I've been live for 70 minutes. Woo, that's way too long. All right, so like I said, everybody, I go live every Monday night. And before I end this live stream, like always, I like to bring up my 2 books. I've got the Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You, and then Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets. Now, this one's like a good coffee table book. It's loaded with pictures. This book, Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, Secrets, has interviews with Maine biologists, interviews with other Maine hunters, stories and stuff, and tips and tricks and secrets from other hunters and biologists. And there's some hunters that came from Wisconsin to hunt here in Maine, do some bobcat hunts and stuff. Their stories are in here, and so that it's like a 6-section. It's several sections. There's a section in here on bear hunting, deer hunting, coyote hunting, bobcat hunting, red fox hunting. Hence the picture of me with red fox back. I'm going to eventually put out a volume 2 of Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets, and that other volume, that next Wild Maine Outdoors book will have moose hunting in there. Be like turkey hunting, moose hunting, bear hunting, deer hunting only in that book. And this one is bear hunting, deer hunting, and predator hunting. And then we got the Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You. The PayPal links to order any one of these books or both of these books are in my descriptions below all my YouTube videos. You can go in the description and see the titles: Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Secrets, or the Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You. And there's the PayPal links to click on to order both or any one of these 2 books. Then obviously there's the shopping icon that you click on to browse my Spikes and Gills hoodies and t-shirts and such and so forth. So yeah, check all that out in the description below. And like I mentioned several times, every Monday night, right? Oh yeah, never say the times usually. Every Monday night at 9 to 10 p.m., sometimes past 10, I'm going live every Monday night, 9 p.m. Be here with us. Let's go live, everybody. Let's build this community strong. Hunting and fishing community. Let's help one another be successful out there in the field and catch our biggest fish, and put our tags on our biggest buck or our biggest turkey or bear or anything for that matter. So, yeah. So I hope all of you enjoyed this live stream, and I hope to see you back here next Monday night at 9 p.m. We're going to talk more deer talk then. Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a good night, and I'll see you next Monday.